Living and working in Boston was such a fun experience, but every time that I'm away from home for more than 5, 6 months at a time, I really start to miss it. I just feel an urge to go back and recharge my heart. I just want to spend some time with family, with my friends, and wander around some forest trails, find a new beach spot along the Black Sea, and just wander around in nature. So we came back from Boston and spent 2 months back home. And I even managed to squeeze in a little trip to Abu Dhabi and Dubai with some of my friends. And by the time I knew it, it was time for my wife and I to pick our next destination. It was February, so we wanted to go somewhere warm. First thought in our mind, California. Without any research or hesitation, we picked San Diego. Zero research, no preparation, cold turkey, book the flights, YOLO, let's go. The game plan was very similar to Boston, with the one difference that this time we really had nobody to help us. Brand new city, no job, no car, no place to live, zero connections. So, starting from the ground up, once again, my first move was to book an Airbnb for the first month, giving us hopefully enough time to find a job and a more permanent place to stay. Every morning, we hopped on the trolley and explored all the different neighborhoods in San Diego to get a feel of the city. The first place that we noticed, of course, was the Gas Lamp Quarter. 6, 7 avenues downtown with hundreds of different bars and restaurants. Naturally, that was the first area that we started applying for a job, dropping dozens and dozens resumes in different restaurants. Very quickly, though, we felt that the decision of just packing up our suitcases and leave without any prior research came back and bite us in the ass. It was mid-February, and in the span of 2 weeks, we have already applied at probably 50 different restaurants, and we didn't hear back from any single one of them. Nobody was hiring. I was so ignorant that I thought California has no seasons and there's always the same amount of business and work all throughout the year. Well, first reality check sets in. We were looking for a job at the worst time of the year. Tourists were gone and the season wasn't going to start for another 3 or 4 months. However, even though the odds were not in our favor, we kept looking for a job, kept searching, kept browsing the neighborhoods, and eventually my wife started working at a place in Seaport Village and I got a job in Pacific Beach. Finding a place to stay was pretty challenging too, especially with our absolute ignorance. We were looking for a place to stay for about 6 months, but from browsing listings, we quickly realized that all leases are signed for a full year. This is not Bulgaria where you can rent a place month to month and just pack up and leave whenever you want. We kept browsing and searching and eventually noticed that few listings here and there had an option for a 6 month lease, so that gave us a little hope. After a few weeks of desperation and racking thousands and thousands of steps around different neighborhoods, we finally found a place that was labeled as extended stay hotel. So it had like a little lobby, front desk, and the rooms were built like little studios. Located right in downtown across the convention center, close to the trolley, and with the option for a 6 month lease, that was our spot. Finally, success. The first thing I noticed when living in Gaslamp was the number of homeless and mentally ill people wandering the streets. It's astonishing. Even though Bulgaria is an economically poor country, everyone is well dressed, mentally sound, and all people on the streets are normal. That was my first encounter with that problem in the US. How the most prosperous economy in the world and the land of opportunities could allow such a problem to escalate to such extremes. It is such a wild contrast. You look up, you see these magnificent skyscrapers, beautiful buildings, and then you look down and you see misery, drugs, trash, and the walking shells of once vibrant, spiritual alive people that now behave more like animals than humans. It is a sad reality that I'm still grappling with. trying to comprehend the underlying reasons behind it. When we moved downtown, I signed up for the nearest 24 fitness gym, and as a sign up bonus, they offered me a free session with a personal trainer. I started going to the gym, got into my routine, and didn't really want it or needed that session, but different trainers kept texting me day after day until one day I had some extra time I was off from work. So I thought to myself, all right, why not? Let's give it a chance. Maybe I'll get a fresh perspective into my workout. I'll be able to incorporate new exercises. So let's give it a chance. So I scheduled a workout with the last trainer that texted me, and I gotta tell you, that was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Not only did I had a great workout and I was introduced to some new exercises, but I found one of my best friends in the face of my personal trainer. We got along so well, and eventually I was honored to have him visit me in Bulgaria, where finally I was able to switch positions, and for the first time, instead of people driving me and showing me around cool places in their hometowns, I was able to show the beauty of my country to someone that never been to Bulgaria before. We woke up with the sun every morning, we jumped in the Black Sea, and had such a fun week exploring different places, different cities, goofing around, and had delicious Bulgarian meals every night cooked by my grandma. With our desire to explore and see different cities, being in San Diego for 6 to 7 months, I didn't want to buy a car, so we were relying on public transport to get around. Living in the Gaslamp downtown and working in PB, that was like an hour commute. It was first trolley, then transferring to a bus. So that's 2 hours commuting per day. That was the first time in my life I had a commute that long. I felt an urge to take advantage of that time and utilize it somehow. I didn't just want to listen to music or waste it. From working in Boston, that was also the first time I managed to save a more substantial amount of money. I had around $20,000. So I started to develop a interest in finance. I wanted to learn how to be smart with money, how to invest, and how to keep it safe. I bought a pair of headphones, and every day commuting back and forth from work, I started listening to audiobooks. This is when I developed the love of books, and since then I probably already listened to and read around 200 books. When I commute, when I'm in the gym, on a walk, riding bikes, I was always listening to something. The first two books I listened to, I remember, were The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham and Money Masters the Game by Tony Robbins. These two books, I would say, laid down the foundation of my financial literacy. I learned the basics of investing, the emotions wrapped around it, and the most common mistakes people make with money. Look, San Diego is not perfect. It definitely has its flaws, but one of the things that I really love about it is that every different neighborhood feels like a completely different city. Different architecture, different people, different food, atmosphere. It's not just one big city that's all the same. And I gotta be honest, the first time I came here, I did not fully appreciate it. I was a little spoiled. I feel that this is one of the challenges of living in San Diego. No matter how hard you try not to take it for granted, appreciate it, not to get used with the beauty of the city, the weather, slowly but surely you get spoiled. Day by day, slowly but surely, it starts to feel normal. Until one day you wake up, you go outside in the beautiful 70-degree weather, you feel like a light breeze on the side of your face, sun is shining, and you're thinking to yourself, another day. The only cure for this is to leave. The only way to offset that slow adaptation is to periodically step out and leave for a while. Go experience different weather, see different people, different cultures, and then and only then you come back and you have a different lens, you have a different perspective, and you're able once again to grasp the beautiful depth and appreciate it. This is actually an interesting phenomenon that I've noticed all around the world. In Bulgaria, for example, the people that never set foot abroad are the ones that complain the most. The ones that hate the country and are absolutely convinced that there's no worse place and a country more corrupt than Bulgaria. However, on the other side, people that wander around the world, explore different countries, which poorer, which wealthier, quickly realize that could be way worse and we actually have it pretty good back home. Even though it's a small country, it has so much to offer. Deep history, beautiful mountains, amazing beach spots along the Black Sea coast, and so much more. In my city, for example, you can walk at any random street at 4 a.m. without having to look over your shoulder. Can't say the same for most of the places I've been around the world. It's beautiful, cheap, and safe. And don't even get me started on things like heating and AC. It's such a trivial thing, but back home, no matter if you're poor or wealthy, there is a designated AC unit with a heating option in every single room. While here I feel like I live in a medieval times, having to attach during the summer huge tubes to my window and struggling to fall asleep from the noise coming out from that huge thing. Here, I would almost consider it a miracle if you find a rental place with a proper AC. I'm not talking about these huge, ridiculous Ghostbusters inventions, but like a proper central AC. Living right in the heart of the city had its perks. One of my hobbies was to crash into random hotels, hot tubs, and outdoor swimming pool areas. So many beautiful rooftop pools and outdoor areas with palm trees, ping pong tables, hot tubs, and different games to play. You just walk in like you own the place, blend in with the crowd, and nobody questions you for a second. It's been 3 years now that I spent in San Diego, and at that point, I can say that I've been pretty much everywhere. But I remember in the beginning having the excitement of having so many different places to go and explore. From local places like Seaport Village, where you have the historical USS Midway Museum, to Coronado, where if you listen to David Goggins' books, the Butts training for the Navy SEALs takes place with the famous Hell Week. If we're talking about neighborhoods, my favorite is definitely La Jolla. It has a little vintage Italian vibe to it. Everything is so clean and organized with no homeless or mentally ill people. Also, the beautiful Torrey Pines hiking trails are nearby. Talking about hikes, I've been very fortunate with the new friends I found here because thanks to them, I explored so many different hikes in beautiful places that I would never find on my own. There are so many beautiful hikes around San Diego with a vast variety of terrains and scenery, but here's two of my favorites that are just unique. In the bone-dry desert of Anza Borrego, near Ocotillo, California, you find the Domelands, once a tropical sea full of marine life. You're essentially walking on an ancient seabed surrounded by millions of fossils, shells, sea snails, and sand dollars. There are several very interesting dome formations with wind caves inside of them where you can just sit down and relax, have lunch, or even spend the night in. There are almost no markings on the trails and it's so easy to get lost. Once you go deep enough into the desert, everything starts to look the same and there are no signs of civilizations, no signs, no lights, nothing. I remember the first time we went there, we got off the highway, started following a dirt road that was leading into the desert, and everything felt like a simulation. The silence was so deep that it hurt in my ears. The weather was just perfect, not cold, not too hot, complete absence of wind. And you know how when you turn off your car, you hear like a little cracks from the engine? These sounded like explosions. There was like a fireworks show going on. The silence was so deep. You could see the Milky Way in the sky, shooting stars every 5 to 10 seconds. It was unreal. Just a heads up though for the three people that will be watching this video. If you're thinking about exploring the Domelands, do your research and stay on the path. Because if you head astray a couple of miles north, there is a mysterious no man's land called the Carrizo Impact Area, a 45-mile chunk of the desert that was used as a bombing range during World War II and the Korean War. The desert is sprinkled with exploded and unexploded 1,000-pound bombs, rockets, and all kinds of ammunitions. From my research and the very little information available, seems like the government don't want to report the location of the bombs from fear that it will spark curiosity and people will go look for them. This place makes you feel like you're in an Indiana Jones movie. It's near Jacumba Hot Springs, California, right at the Mexico border, which is a clothing optional town, so don't be surprised if you see completely naked people hiking in the area. That being said, the hike area itself was once an operating railroad connecting San Diego to the interior of the US. Now it's a private property and it's illegal to trespass. Completed in 1919, it was eventually deemed the impossible railroad due to many of the tunnels collapsing from the rough terrain and different earthquakes throughout the years, with the last collapse in 2017 marking the official shutdown of the railway. One of the highlights of this hike is the largest freestanding wooden trestle in the world. Walking around the railways for 10 hours straight in the desert heat, passing through tunnels and abandoned train cars, definitely interesting and rewarding with lots of history desert hike, but also dangerous. There was no shortage of rattlesnakes and there's no cell phone coverage in the desert. Besides hiking, San Diego was the place where I tried surfing for the first time. And it's so funny because surfing is one of these things that it looks so easy on the outside, but before you dive deep into it and try it for yourself, you have no idea how challenging it is, how much endurance it requires, precise balance, explosive power, and so much technique. I remember walking in the pier in Pacific Beach and watching the surfers making it look so easy, and I was thinking to myself, oh, that's cool. I'll probably need like an hour or two in the water and I'll get a hang of it. Well, I couldn't be any further from the truth. The first time I spent 2 hours in the water just trying to survive and chasing my surfboard. Few months into our journey here, when we finally already got a job, a place of our own, and learn how to navigate around the city, we wanted to go to Mexico. And that was a pretty interesting experience because Tijuana being only 30 minutes away and the trolley going all the way to the border, we actually crossed the border walking. So we walked to a different country. We got off the trolley at the last stop, showed our passports, pushed a huge metal rotating door, and just like that, found ourselves in Mexico. Such a contrast in a matter of minutes. We wandered in Tijuana for a few hours, got some delicious Mexican food, rode on some shady taxis, got scammed a little bit, but eventually we got back. So many people are terrified of going there, have heard horrific stories from friends and whatnot, but the reality is that if you mind your own business, if you're being respectful, and if you don't do stupid shit, you'll be just fine. You might pay a few extra pesos if you get in the wrong taxi, but not a big deal. With every passing month, we started to explore more and more of San Diego, and we slowly started to feel ready for another adventure. My wife actually had a girlfriend that lived in Naples, Florida, so we started thinking about it and slowly planned our way there. We learned that the season there starts around November, December as the weather cools down a bit and it doesn't rain as much. So our plan was to stay until September in San Diego. With our days in that city coming to an end, I had one dream that I wanted to fulfill before I go. I wanted to jump from an airplane. 2 days before my flight, two friends and I made our way to Oceanside. Filled with excitement, we checked in at the little front desk office of the skydiving company and left all of our belongings and headed out to the little airport where we waited our turn to come. An hour passed by, and when our turn almost came, we were notified that there were some clouds forming in the sky, so we have to wait for the sky to clear before we can go. We wandered around Oceanside for like an hour and eagerly came back to the drop zone where the lady from the front desk dropped the news. It's not gonna happen today, boys. I'm sorry. We cannot let you go with these clouds in the sky. So she asked us if we would like to come back first thing in the morning tomorrow or if we'd like a refund. After spending hours and hours waiting and going back and forth, my friends had enough and decided to get their money back and just forget about it. Me, on the other side, I had 48 hours left before I leave. I was not going to let my dreams slip through my fingers so easily. On the next day, 5 a.m. in the morning, I got on the bus, from the bus on the trolley, from the trolley on the train, and eventually 2 hours later, I arrived at the Oceanside train station. Got on another bus, walked for half an hour, and eventually found myself back at the little airport. All by myself. I lied to my girlfriend that I was going to the beach because she would freak out. And an hour later, I was 13,000 feet up in the air, making my dream a reality. Now thinking about it and reflecting back, I'm so glad I did it. It was a beautiful experience. On the next day, I had my last shift at work. And after a little messy but lovely surprise from everybody, it was time for me to pack up and head back home. San Diego was a challenge, but one that was well worth it. I was rewarded with a lot of good friends and so many beautiful experiences. I have now one more place in the world that I can call home. With that being said, my friends, that marks the end of part 2 of the first Generation American series. And I'll catch you in the next one where I'm gonna take you to Naples, Florida. Ciao!